This is Greg Kelly. Donate now to Toys for Tots, which works year-round. Go to toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots supports children in need throughout the year with programs like the Toys for Tots Literacy Program. Established in 2008, it has provided over 63 million books to disadvantaged children. The Toys for Tots Literacy Program is committed to providing disadvantaged children with direct access to books and educational resources that enhance their ability to read and communicate effectively. Go to toysfortots.org.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And it's less than 24 hours from President Trump's deadline that he says is hard and fast. Guess what? Iran, come to the table or else. He's essentially saying open the Strait of Hormuz or you will live in hell. And today he repeated multiple times to reporters, there is one thing he will make sure Iran never has. Take a listen.
Hopefully it could be over with quickly. Again, there are lots of different alternatives. We have many alternatives. We could leave right now and it would take them 15 years to rebuild what they have. We could leave right now. But I want to finish it up. Iran, ready, cannot have a nuclear weapon. They are lunatics, and you can't put nuclear weapons in the hands of a lunatic. Thank you very much.
They are lunatics. We will not allow them to ever get a nuclear weapon, and they better open the Strait of Hormuz or we will send them to the Stone Age. Also today, President Trump came out and blasted NATO and other allies. He was very upset, obviously, with NATO, but he also blasted South Korea, saying, look, we've got over 40,000 U.S. troops in South Korea. They're protecting South Korea from North Korea. We have a great relationship with them, and I asked them to help. They did not help. He also talked about Australia, did not help. And he talked about Japan. Remember the Japanese prime minister? She came over and met with him. And he also said Japan did not help, even though there's a lot of U.S. forces based there in Japan. So he says there's going to be a big realigning, that's for sure. Later on this week, the head of NATO, Mark Rutte, is going to be coming over. And here is what Marco Rubio had to say about this tremendous disappointment, especially of NATO, when they needed NATO to just step up and do a few things. They weren't there.
When we need them to allow us to use their military bases, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, over the years, trillions of dollars, and all of these American forces stationed in the region? If we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases. So I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship. We're going to have to re-examine the value of NATO and that alliance for our country. Ultimately, that's a decision for the president to make, and he'll have to make it. We're going to finish the job here. As I said, we're very, very close to achieving our objectives on all of these things that I've outlined. But I do think, unfortunately, we are going to have to re-examine whether or not this alliance that has served this country well for a while is still serving that purpose, or is it now become a one-way street where America is simply in a position to defend Europe, but when we need the help of our allies, they're going to deny us basing rights and they're going to deny us overflight? I think these are very legitimate questions that we need to be asking, and this are going to have to be very carefully examined after this conflict is over.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be examined in a lot of ways. I mean, what a tremendous disappointment. The Japanese prime minister comes over, but doesn't help in any way. Same thing with South Korea. A lot of these NATO countries, they couldn't wait to have President Trump help them on so many levels, and yet they can't even deliver a basic thing. That really is heartbreaking, and it does make us reconsider many of the relationships. Also, by the way, Rubio was so busy this weekend making sure that the niece and the grandniece of the deceased Iranian Revolutionary Guard Major General Soleimani, remember, they were arrested. They were in the United States. He revoked their green card. Turns out that they've been living lavishly in Los Angeles. Blood money, I'm sure, buying tons of in fact, they were like stuffing Hermes clothes in the trunk when they got busted. And these people are living a lavish life, blasting America, calling America the great Satan while they're living in America. How nice is this? It makes you wonder how many others are living in this country that don't really love this country. Well, speaking of somebody who has made some very outrageous comments and still continues to, by the way, is this guy Hassan Piker. This is the guy who's pals, remember, with Mondani of New York, the mayor of New York. He's the one who said that America deserved 9/11. See, I said that. Ha, 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 ha. Well, Ro Khanna, who is a Democrat from California, what's so scary? He's considered a moderate. And he was asked on Meet the Press, do you regret appearing with this guy on his podcast recently? Because he said some really horrible things about America. Do you regret hanging out with this guy? And Ro Khanna said, nah. Take a listen to this exchange.
I do want to ask you, here we are in the midst of the midterms. You're someone who's been quite outspoken. You have made several appearances on a show hosted by socialist commentator Hassan Piker. Some of your fellow Democrats, though, have raised alarms about his views. Here are two members of a left-leaning think tank. This is how they put it. They wrote, quote, no left-wing agitator is more influential and extreme than Twitch streamer Hassan Piker. He's referred to ultra-Orthodox Jews as inbred, employed anti-Semitic dog whistles, bloodthirsty, violent pig dog against an anti-Hamas viewer of his stream, compared liberal Zionists to liberal Nazis, and said Hamas is 1,000 times better than the Israeli state. Now, Hassan Piker says some of his comments have been taken out of context, but he largely stands by them. Do you have any regrets about appearing on his show?
None, and I would go again.
None, and I'd be proud to go again, despite some of his really vile remarks. And the Democrats are completely unrepentant. Ro Khanna also saying that, yeah, we'll go for impeachment against the president if we get the House back in November in the midterms. Other big news today. This just came out. This is wild. A new Nancy Guthrie ransom note sent to TMZ. And apparently it's from the same person who sent prior ones to them. This one claiming to know the location of the mother of Savannah Guthrie, of Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old who's now been missing for 65 days. That is just heartbreaking. And we don't know, again, if the validity of these notes or not, but it's coming from the same person. And these latest ransom notes that were sent a few hours ago to TMZ are saying that they know who the kidnapper is, and they also know where her body is. Give me half a Bitcoin and I will tell you. She is dead, the note is claiming. And here is Savannah Guthrie. She came back to the Today Show. Wow, it was so emotional. And boy, she got a beautiful, warm greeting from her colleagues and from the public. So deserved. I just can't believe the courage. It's really remarkable, her courage to come back and come to the Today Show and say she needed to come back. She didn't know if she was ready, but she said she was going to try. Here's Savannah Guthrie, who came back just a few hours ago. Remember, still does not know the whereabouts of her mother.
Yeah. SG, come on out here. They've been waiting for it. How does it feel?
These signs are so beautiful. You guys have been so beautiful. I've received so many letters, so much kindness to me and my whole family. We feel it. We feel your prayers. So thank you so much. Thank you.
It's not just today. They've been out here
every day.
Every day.
This is such a nice
signs.
pocket square. I don't want to slobber on it. Okay, it is. I know. I'm sorry.
How little is a million of them?
Okay. We love you.
Really powerful. Amazing to see her back. And let's pray that we get some answers soon. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Judith in Brooklyn, line 5. Go ahead, Judith. Your thoughts tonight.
Hi, Rita. Thanks for taking the call. I'm listening to the show, and by the way, Norm was great. And
he was on fire tonight. He was fired up. I love when Norm's fired up.
Yeah. Short to me, to the point. I want to tell you, I have a few things to share with you. Number one, talking about Iran and 45,000 people being murdered just because they came out with nothing, no weapons, just to protest because they have no water, they have no livelihood, they have no nothing, and it was just mowed down like that, innocent people. But do you remember they hung up this beautiful Iranian 19-year-old champion wrestler.
Yes.
Gorgeous boy. Gorgeous young boy, 19. What did he do wrong? What? Who did he murder to have to be hung up? He needs to be the poster child representing these 45,000 people that was needlessly murdered. And that's part of why this regime, this arrogant, evil regime with this IRGC Khomeini regime, they have to really be eliminated. And I have to tell you something. Rita, right here in this country, could you explain to me who are these people that have been mourning the death of Khomeini, who is the enemy of the United States? Who are these enemies here within? I'm asking you, 9/11, do you recall? You had people on rooftops, I'm sorry to say.
Right, you're right.
And Patterson.
Right.
And they were celebrating 9/11. You had October 7. They were celebrating October 7 right here in this country. We have to really, and Khomeini himself, he sent hitmen. And it said this time the bullet will not miss for President Trump. But President Trump is the warmonger? No. President Trump is trying to be the savior, okay? No. And that's who he is, and it's just so disgusting. I mean, I could go on and on.
No, but and also, Judith, all these stuff about the war crimes, it's just shocking. Now, to answer your question about who are these people, it goes back to how could we have, I'll tell you, I was stunned when I heard this news of Rubio revoking the green cards of Soleimani's family. Of course, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard general who was taken out by President Trump in the first term, and to find out that his niece and grandniece were hanging out in L.A., living the high life, very lavish lifestyle. And on her social media commentary, both of them were very outspoken. They were supporters of the terrorist regime in Iran. I'm a little baffled, Judith, why it took so long for the Trump administration or any administration. I guess Joe Biden didn't even know if he was alive or not, but at least Trump administration to even revoke it. Wouldn't you have thought you would have kicked them out on day one? I would have done it in the first term. And then the fact that they've been living all this time and now slamming, denouncing America as the great Satan, and they're in our country. And so, by the way, there's some other reports out there that there are other relatives that some of them are, kids of IRGC. They hate America, but they send their kids for the great education in America. They hate America, but they send them to live in L.A. and dress, like they're at a disco. And they hate America, and yet some of them are actually teaching on college campuses. I mean, that's another thing. Aren't you shocked, Judith, that they were even in this country to begin with, that they didn't boot them out day one? I mean, what the heck were they still doing here?
Exactly right. But let me ask you a question. Talk about a professor. This Mahmoud Khomeini, not Khomeini, what's his name? Zoran Mandami's father. What is he doing? He believes in suicide bombers, okay, as legitimate warfare, which is ridiculous, okay? His own father is a professor. I've heard him talk. He talks fruit salad. He talks absolute evil.
Yeah, he says they're misunderstood. The suicide bombers are misunderstood. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right, Judith?
I want you to know, I asked once a very wise man, I said, how far can evil go? You know what he answered me? Unlimited. And when you look at these IRGC people, you have to wonder, how stubborn can you be? Don't you see the handwriting on the wall, you idiots? How stubborn can you be? Like you want to just kill yourselves or whatever? You're not going to win. They're not going to win. They're losing. They're absolutely losing. And all the propaganda trying to say that America's not winning, it's not true.
The problem is when you're dealing with fanatics, even if the facts are obviously otherwise, they don't care or they can't see it. I mean, there's so many layers to this. But you hit it on the head. I mean, it's pretty obvious. And I think if they were not zealots, they would have surrendered a long time ago. The question is how far it's going to go from here, because that is the big deal. And we may see tomorrow night one of the greatest militaries on the face of this earth ever pounding away. And if they don't submit, I think he has no choice. He has to do it. That's my thought. Right. Judith, thank you very much. We're going to continue, everybody. Judith, always good to hear from you. 1-800-848-9222. We'll continue, guys, on The Rita Cosby Show right after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And Trump wants to see freedom in Iran with the big deadline ticking. 8 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow night. He said, I can pound all the bridges. I can pound the power plants. I just need 4 hours. It could be a rock'em sock'em show tomorrow night. You definitely don't want to miss it. By the way, in about 10 minutes or so from now, we're also going to talk about another historic moment. Artemis going around the moon, seeing the dark side of the moon, just like Pink Floyd sang about years ago. Well, we are going to be talking to Dr. Sky. Steve Cates is going to join us. And also President Trump, just a little bit ago, called into Artemis. We're going to tell him we're going to tell you what he said and how awesome that he was having a conversation with them after they made history. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Robert in Brooklyn, line 2. Go ahead, Robert.
Hi, Rita. Thanks for taking my call. Well, President Trump, he fired Pam Bondi, so that's another attorney general. That didn't seem to work out. You have Bondi, and then you had Sessions, and
yep. So what's your point?
And Bill, and but anyway, and also he had to get rid of Kristi Noem. But in terms of the situation you have going here, with the United States has about 100,000 troops in Europe, about $60 billion a year to protect Europe. $60 billion a year to protect Europe. And you mentioned before we have about 50,000 troops in Japan, protecting Japan, about 50,000 troops protecting South Korea. And these countries, Spain and Italy and France and UK and Australia and Japan and South Korea, they didn't help us at all. It's terrible etiquette. Not that we really needed their help so much, but just the thought that they didn't care at all. And, President Trump, you're talking about, we had the power plants and the bridges. Well, President Truman, he bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah, and you know what? Obviously, many people still talk about that to this day. But look at what's happened, where we are now. I want to bring it up to modern times. President Trump may have no choice whatsoever.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on.
Well, it's always breaking news when you got Battlestar Galactica. Matt Blaze is smiling. You can tell he loves that. And I love space, and I love all this stuff with Artemis. Artemis makes history after it did a historic moon flyby. It went around the moon and saw the dark side of the moon. And just a few moments ago, President Trump talked to the Artemis crew after they did that historic trick. And here is President Trump.
Whole thing into the stars, this incredible journey into the stars. So I just wanted an honor to speak to you, and I wanted to congratulate each and every one of you. And tell me, what is the most unforgettable part of this really historic day? The whole world is watching and listening. Please tell me.
We've seen from Earth for all of our lives, but we're seeing them from a different perspective, and then we started to get a glimpse of and we saw sites, Oriental sites that no human has ever seen before, not even in Apollo, and that was amazing for us. And then the surprise of the day, we just came out of an eclipse where the sun, moon, and the entire dark moon about that big right out the window that we were watching. We could see the corona of the sun, and then we could see the planet train line up, and at Mars, and all of us commented how excited we are to watch this nation and this planet become a two-planet species.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I mean, the reception, you can hear a little clipping, but sometimes it sounds better than a phone call if you're calling like somebody down the street. And he's talking to the Artemis crew. That was when he was talking to them live just a few minutes ago. And who better to talk about all of this and about this historic mission? And boy, what an incredible night it has been. Dr. Sky, i.e. Steve Cates. We love him. And Dr. Sky, first of all, how cool is that to hear the President of the United States calling in? There they are. They just took a turn. They just went around the full moon,
Wow.
made history, and there was President Trump calling in to them. Hello,
Yes, well, what a historic day, Rita, for American space and the technology that we have. And as many people, may have heard, these astronauts went farther out into space as far as any human ever, beyond that of what they did back in April the 15th of 1970 with Apollo 13. But more important than that, what can be more important than that, Rita, is the sightings and the science that they're conducting right now. As Reed Weissman mentioned, the commander, they've also, in honor of his late wife, Carol, there's now a new lunar crater named in honor of his wife who passed, sadly, from cancer a number of years ago. And the spelling of the crater is Carroll. What an honor. But it's amazing, Rita, to see this science take place. They obviously went into the darkness and behind, as we call it, the far side of the moon at 6:44 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And that's unusual, Rita, because in the future, like the Chinese, they put a relay satellite around the moon so that in the future iterations, if we do the same thing, there'll be no more. That'll be just a piece of history where there's a big blackout. So a lot of great science happening today. And seeing what? A total eclipse of the sun by the moon. That must have been literally, the word astronomical cannot be used too much. And more than that, it's amazing.
It is amazing. So now walk us through sort of the schedule. Like, when do they come back? And what do they do between now and the landing, I guess? And where do they land? And where are they coming in?
Well, they're going to come in hopefully on the 10th, and the specific time, of course, varies, but they're on a direct mission, back to the Earth. It's called a free return trajectory. Now, this is interesting without going into too much of the deep science. The spacecraft understands from its orbital dynamics, the moon's gravity and simplicity, Rita, is what's pulling it around, and it should, obviously. They've done this many times with Apollos. It will splash down in the Pacific Ocean. Obviously, we're not sure the exact location, but they have a very critical maneuver to perform. They have to separate from, that is, the Orion capsule integrity, from the remainder of the support part, which is behind them. And literally, this is all rocket science, no kidding. They have to be able to come directly into the atmosphere at the right angle. Now, always to be positive here, if it were not the right angle, they could literally skip across the atmosphere and be out there in space forever, never to return. So there's a lot of critical science here. They did this many, many times, but they'll be coming back with the highest velocity, at least that's what NASA tells us, at about 25,000 miles an hour, Rita. I haven't gone that fast, have you? That's amazing to come back.
Not since my high school days.
Wow. And that was a big event, I'm sure. But it's amazing. So right now, if you look at the nasa.gov website, people should go there if they want to track it. The spacecraft right now is about 11,330 miles away from the moon, thus giving us evidence that they're returning. And their velocity is not really that high. They're a little over 1,000 miles an hour as they lose slowly the gravitational pull of the moon and get to a point where they'll start accelerating. Not exactly sure where, but on the way back, well, Mother Earth will pull them back in at a higher velocity. But Rita, something from the trivia file that I find very interesting. The first creatures, other than humans, to ever go to the moon were back by Russia. They sent a spacecraft called the Zond 5, which is called Probe 5. And they actually had 2 tortoises on board with some other animals. And those 2 tortoises actually were not fed. That's kind of sad. They wanted to see how they would handle space. So they went out toward the moon, did kind of a flyby, and returned. And you know how long tortoises live. So even today, Rita, the offspring of those tortoises, or who knows, maybe they're still around. But that's a fact. It wasn't just humans.
Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting. Wow.
That's amazing stuff. A little bit on the trivia side, but hey, there's so much to report about the Artemis 2. And there again, as I mentioned, moving back toward the Earth at good velocity. But on the comedic side, if we have just a moment.
Yeah, what about the toilet? By the way, I got to ask you about the toilet, right? Isn't it like the most expensive toilet in world history? And it's Rita, not working.
Right. That toilet has caused more concerns right now. So they were saying just before they got close to the moon that they obviously had a problem with the urine or the liquid waste component. But in many cases, they're venting that out into space. The other side of the human waste, obviously, that's compacted and stored to be released, once they return home. So that's an amazing story, too. But Rita, from the comedic side, If you were to take Nathan's famous hot dogs, and somebody came up with this, and line them up back to, or edge to edge, back to back, it would take 2.37 billion hot dogs just to be able to get to the moon. So Joey Chestnut would be a very busy person, don't you think?
Yeah, he would be. Oh, my God. That's a good analogy. Yeah, Joey Chestnut looks like a novice compared to that. It's amazing the distance, just like you said. And you could even to hear the connection, the fact of how far technology is, that the president is able to call in live and say, hey, good run around the moon, guys. It's
amazing.
It is. I just pinch myself, and I know that you do too. We are living in amazing times, and lucky for those tortoises. I can't believe they beat us. Doesn't the hare usually beat the tortoise? I'm trying to remember, right?
That's a good way to put it. But one final thing, Rita, this is very interesting. They did observe, they took turns, 2 and 2 at a time to look out the windows, but they were doing more than looking. They were photographing regions on the moon. But this is interesting. They actually observed meteor strikes onto the surface of the moon.
Oh, neat.
Now, I've observed lunar eclipses, like many people, for about 50 years, and a good friend of mine was videotaping from Earth one of the deep parts of the deep red blood moon, and he captured some bright spots on the moon, but they actually saw them only some 4,000 miles above the lunar surface. So that, not to scare people or the astronauts of the future, these debris come in, and there's really no atmosphere, obviously, there. So when they come down like the rock or piece of metal or iron or nickel iron that they are. So that's a future thing for astronauts and habitation, to try to protect some sort of a shell. And some believe, since there's a lot of these deep pocket holes and craters, that we can actually burrow out or go inside one of those areas that's already dug out as a crater to be an extra protection for a future lunar habitation and to keep it away from the radiation that would be harmful to astronauts.
Wow, that is really interesting. You're right. That's really helpful for future endeavors, and there will be many. Yes. That is for sure. Steve Cates, Dr. Sky, we love you. And, of course, you want to make sure you tune in Fridays and Saturday nights, midnight to 2 a.m. You can always listen to Dr. Sky and also hear him also on WABCRadio.com. You're the best, and I'm sure we'll be talking later this week.
Always remember to keep your eyes to the skies. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you very much. And look for the tortoises, too. Thank you very much. That was really interesting. Dr. Sky, thanks so much. And everybody, now we'll take your calls. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And speaking of outer space, you got to hear this comment from Congressman Ro Khanna. This is Democrat of California, who says if they get the House, the Democrats, they will bring in good old Al Green and say, impeach, impeach, impeach.
If Democrats win the House and possibly the Senate in November, there's a better than even chance Donald Trump gets impeached again.
Absolutely. He should be impeached now. I mean, he's taken us into a disastrous war, threatening war crimes in Iran in terms of the knocking out plants and knocking out electricity. And the Democrats will impeach him once we take back the House, and should impeach him for all the things he's done. And depending on the Senate, he may face conviction if we get to 60.
Oh, isn't that something great to look forward to, guys? And also, as I mentioned, Ro Khanna has been hanging around a lot with this guy, Hassan Piker, big social media guy, a guy who said that America deserves 9/11, a guy who's been palling around with New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. And this is what Hassan Piker said recently. It's getting a lot of headlines, guys. Essentially, I guess, praising Hezbollah. Isn't that nice?
Allah.
Who's that?
He's the leader of Hezbollah, the general secretary of Hezbollah.
What's Hezbollah?
Hezbollah
is that small guy?
Hezbollah is this is the same name.
Okay.
Hezbollah is a paramilitary organization that is also a part of the Lebanese parliament.
Do we like them or no?
I think as a resistance group, they're pretty successful against Israel. But everybody hates them. Like everybody in the region, a lot of people don't like them. Like,
I like what you like.
I don't have an issue with them, let's just say. They're Shia. I am Sunni, technically. Not that this sectarian distinction matters in this situation, but...
I'll be honest with Sam.
But they are a terrorist organization. Like, they're designated... They are designated by the American state as a terrorist organization.
I do not like them, then.
Well, I mean, we also called Nelson Mandela a terrorist until 2008. Do you know who that is?
Wait, so he's equating Hezbollah with Nelson Mandela, like this guy, like Nelson Mandela, was a great hero. No question. Fighting apartheid, housed in Robben Island in South Africa. By the way, I went there to Robben Island. I saw the small cell that he was held in. I hope if anybody gets a chance to go over there and see it, boy, do you realize the will and the courage of that man, of Nelson Mandela, truly a hero. And you're going to compare him to Hezbollah? Like they're freedom fighters too? That's disgusting. And you heard what he said, I don't really have a problem with him. And then Ro Khanna, who's a Democratic member of Congress, again, a U.S. member of Congress, not for Hezbollah, but for U.S. member of Congress, he was hanging around with Hassan Piker, did his podcast, and even NBC News Meet the Press said, hey, do you regret, maybe being on with with this guy? Some of his comments are vile. Some of them are this, some of them are that. Oh, no, I have no problem. So I guess you have no problem hanging around a guy who says Hezbollah's not that bad and America deserved 9/11. And then yet he's spending his efforts saying that Trump should be impeached. What a hypocrite. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Joaquin in Pennsylvania, line 4. Go ahead, Joaquin.
Good evening, Rita. It's just absolutely disgusting listening to these people. And, when it comes to space and to the moon, we must remember that, whoever controls the high ground controls the battlefield. So really it is essential for national security that, that we do this.
Yeah, it is. And that's why Space Force is a big deal, too,
Exactly. But something, in a nutshell, the purpose of an army is to break things and to kill people. And the side that wins the war is the one that is more effective at breaking more things and killing more people than the other side does. And hopefully President Trump is going to make this clear in Iran right now. And,
you can't tiptoe through the tulips. You got to kind of either go for it or not. So let me ask you, Joaquin, because we're talking less than 24 hours away, where he's saying it will be utter obliteration. Do you believe he has to do that if they don't come to the table? Of course, we're all hoping they're going to come to the table, including President Trump. It's clear he would love to see a deal. But if they don't, and I'm circumspect that they ever will, but if they don't, at least short term, I think he has to do it.
Yes, he does. He's going to have no choice with this. I think that really he's been very generous, and he has kept pushing the deadline back because I'm pretty sure that he really doesn't want to do this. And yes, the Iranian people will suffer. But, if we don't get this job done, these Iranian people, they're going to be massacred. They're going to go around and they're just going to start killing people that oppose the regime. So, this has to get done. And hopefully the Iranian people will see that and will appreciate that. Also, too, that thing about the Army, I have to bibliograph Rush Limbaugh for that one. That's actually his line. I've been dying to use that one. And this thing with the international community, I'm sorry, but you know what? This has to be America first now. And we got to start cutting ties with people like the UN, with NATO, even the UK and France. These are all now, they've turned anti-Western civilization. And
yeah, they really have. And yet, what about South Korea? He brought up South Korea, Australia, and Japan today. South Korea and Japan, that was kind of a shocker.
That actually shocked me also, because I thought that some of these, these Eastern countries there, like Japan and South Korea, I thought that they would have been on board with us, a little bit more closely tied to us. And because I understand Australia is tied, of course, to Great Britain, and to the European Union in many ways. But yes, that one does shock me quite a bit.
Yeah, no doubt, Joaquin. It's going to be, I think these relationships, like you just said, are certainly going to have to be reevaluated. And what are we keeping? Obviously, we don't want to have North Korea infiltrate South Korea, but they're there on the marcation line right there to protect South Korea. We have 45,000 troops, and yet they can't even send something basic to protect us. That is really shocking. Really shocking. So I think there are a lot of relationships that are going to have to be reevaluated, no doubt, after this one, Joaquin. Joaquin, thanks so much. 1-800-848-9222. We'll continue with your calls in a minute, guys. But first, support our heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a very powerful story from Worcester, Ohio, where Vietnam-era veterans were honored at a recent event held by the Veterans Service Commission there. And just to give you a little background, one of them was Vietnam veteran Ken Kitchen. He served in the 2nd Battalion, 9th Marines in Vietnam. He stood and reflected on the shared experiences and lasting bonds among his brothers in arms there, saying, "We fought together, we bled together, we laughed together, we cried together, we shared our lives, we helped each other survive, but sadly, some did not." By the way, about 2.7 million Americans served during the Vietnam War, with more than 58,000 killed and approximately 153,000 wounded. Also, 766 Americans were held as prisoners of war. 114 of those died in captivity. And of course, to all of you who participated in the Vietnam War, also your family members, and also, generations of those who had their fathers participate potentially in the war. We love you. We appreciate you. Welcome home to all of you. We will never forget your incredible sacrifice, especially here on The Rita Cosby Show. And everybody, help America to never, ever forget. Donate just $11 a month to make such a huge difference in the lives of our veterans and their heroic families. The best way to do it is to check out the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. All you have to do is donate $11 a month to the great Tunnel to Towers Foundation at t2t.org. Be sure to check them out. This is the best way to give back to America's heroes at t2t.org. That's T, the number 2, t.org.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And you guys always know I read your tweets. DMS says, Rita, that he talked to somebody over there with ties to Iran, saying when there's a lull in the bombing, they worry. They are begging for the bombs, just like President Trump said, and wonders when they don't hear them. Well, let's see what happens tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Trump says you better give in, Iran, or else.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
This is Roger Stone for American Sovereign Bullion. Since 2020, the U.S. dollar has lost over 20% of its purchasing power. Meanwhile, gold continues to rise. Call 844-272-2428 or go to asbgold.com now to get your free gold and silver guide and learn how to protect your wealth with physical gold and silver delivered to your door or held in a gold IRA today. So go to asbgold.com now. Don't wait for the markets to drop. That's asbgold.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistant's assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.